Updated November 10, 2017 074143. When Australian artist Dylan Naylor began drawing comics 30 years ago, his talents were not something many people celebrated or even knew about. If you're in late high school and carrying around comics under your arms, it was kind of like wearing a dress, Mr. Naylor said. It attracted a lot of bad attention. Fast forward to 2017 and nerd culture is in chic, with thousands of fans dressing up as their favorite characters at public events like Comic-Con, and some of television's most popular programs reveling in this social scene. When I first started going to things like comic conventions early on, they were always just in a dark building and it was just guys wearing long coats and going through boxes, he said. People now bring their girlfriends and they dress up and everything is bright and colorful and everyone's happy and smiling. Digital offers an opportunity, not a threat. While digital content continues to offer a seemingly insurmountable challenge to traditional print media, comic books appear to be bucking the trend, with strong sales among an ever-growing fandom. According to US-based market research from Comic-Con, the North American comic book or graphic novel industry was worth $1.42 billion in 2016, with digital comics making up around $117 million of that. That's up from $1.13 billion in 2013, while Australia's industry is much smaller by comparison. Editor-in-chief at Perth-based Gestalt Publishing, Wolfgang Bilsma, said digital-only comics were giving artists a way to break into the industry. They can produce their own work, they can upload it and then try to market that towards people who may find a resonance with their aesthetic, Mr. Bilsma said. You get to see and assess their ability as a writer-artist, and it gives a lot more access to review other people's work to see if they're somebody we'd like to work with ourselves. Mr. Bilsma said his company's digital sales had risen by as much as 30% over the past 6 years, while the sale of most hard copies have also increased. In some ways we've actually used digital as leverage to get more interesting exposure in foreign markets to increase our exports, he said. There will still be people who want that tangible artifact, in that collectability sense. But if you look at something like what may have previously been a much sought-after print comic from 20, 30 or 40 or 50 years ago even, which was attracting huge amounts of money for people to have in the collection let alone to just enjoy reading it, a lot of people can now access that same comic digitally. While Gestalt's sales of regular individual comics or monthly floppies like Spider-Man and Superman have been impacted, Mr. Bilsma said it was hard to pinpoint blame. Whether or not that is simply by the rise of digital, or the fact that a lot of the mainstream publishers like DC and Marvel are putting their feet wrong when it comes securing a new audience or even pleasing their existing audience, Mr. Bilsma said. There are different variables in there that are hard to analyze. Collectability is the point of difference. Dylan Naylor's series D'Arendelle became well known in the burgeoning comic book scene of 1990s Australia, when he began selling his work alongside the toys and treats found in show bags. This company would spread them right across Australia in this fabulous distribution network, far better than a newsagent, he said. In a way it was easily the most well-distributed and well-read comic throughout the 90s. While Mr. Naylor describes himself as prodigital, he said the emergence of online self-publishing can only be a good thing. Back then 90s you had to print huge numbers of things to make it economically viable, and get them out there, hand-deliver them and go back and collect money. It's a huge drag. However, Mr. Naylor said digital copies do not have the same collectability value as their hard copy counterparts. I can't imagine that anyone would ever come over to look at someone's hard drive full of downloaded comics, he said. There's a nice sense of pride of having first editions. It's like people re-embracing vinyl and old books, and I think that's what's brought comic book shops back. Global industry. With a local shopfront, Janine LaValent owns a comic book shop in Ballarat, Victoria, which she said had a strong following within the local community with around 300 standing orders. Ms. LaValent said that while running any small business is hard, pop culture has embraced the comic book hero, with Marvel's and DC's respective superhero movie franchises spurning consumer interest in merchandise and spin-offs. The movies are built from the comics, the characters are born in the books, she said. Outcast became a TV series, The Walking Dead. They all started in comics. While publishers can bypass the traditional comic book shop by selling digital copies direct, Ms. LaValent said her store offered a physical community for fans in the regional city. The digital comics are great, they can read them on their phones, on their iPads, on the computers, but it's not the same. They're starting to trickle back into the paper world, into the book world. Topics: Contemporary art, popular culture, internet culture. Ballarat 3350, Perth 6000. First posted November 10, 2017. 073722.